What's going on, guys? It's Cimo, and welcome to another episode of The Meta Ahead, the series where we take a look at the OCG and see if there's anything us TCG players can learn, whether it's picking up a few tips or tricks or seeing what the best decks are, because a lot of the times the TCG metagame trends in the direction of the OCG, and so it's nice to keep up and maybe level up our game. This is brought to us by Road to the King, of course. We are going to be analyzing both number 3 and 4 meta reports that are brought to us by them. Road to the King's a great resource that I like to use to get my OCG information, because it's in English. That's usually the biggest barrier when it comes to that, but it's also just assembled nicely. These are great reports for you to read and some good information for you to have on hand. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So like I said, this is going to be 2 metagame reports in one because I believe that they skipped a week, but this is what the meta breakdown is looking like. We have almost 20% virtual world. Drytron is on the rise. Keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, Lightning Overdrive is now legal in the OCG, and that is probably the main reason why Drytron is seeing such a surge in play. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Zodiac at 14%. We've got some Zodiac Eldritch, some Dragon Maid, Phantom Knight, Prank Kid, Salmagrit, Shadal, and some Adignister as well. That's another deck we'll talk about as we get towards the end of the video. We're going to be starting with Virtual World. It seems we've been starting with that with all of these because, of course, it is the strongest deck. Funny enough, it's the strongest deck here in the TCG as well. That's debatable. Some people might say it's Drytron, but nonetheless, let's go ahead and see what happens. Ganmo went 7-0 and finished first in an event that had 51 teams or 102 participants. He ran 2 skill drain in the side deck against combo decks. Virtual World monster effects are activated in the hand, making themselves unaffected by skill drain. Virtual World Gate Chuche could also be used to destroy his own skill drain when needed to turn off its effect. Now, if you guys have been following the series thus far, you know that Virtual World has always been the center of discussion for the beginning of these videos, and these decks really don't change too much. You can see there's a Pot of Prosperity here in this one in particular, but that's not necessary. Pot of Desires, I think, is a little bit better because in a combo control deck like Virtual World, I think you're going to want to get as many combo pieces as possible to ensure you can either play through multiple forms of disruption your opponent may have, or to help you assemble a larger board at the end of the day. But I still think Pot of Prosperity is going to see play here in the TCG, just something to keep in mind. Also, don't forget the new Gate card when Blazing Vortex is legal. That's something you're going to want to play as well, but this deck looks pretty similar. The hand trap lineup is almost identical to what we saw before with Maxi, Ash Blossom, and Gamma. And even scrolling down here, the extra deck's almost identical. And the side deck, they talk about Skill Drain. This is a card that we have limited here in the TCG. In the very first iterations of this deck, we actually did see a lot of people playing Skill Drain. It was actually, I believe, main decked more than anything, and now you don't really see it too much. This is a card that you could side deck against some of the other decks. We actually are seeing a little bit of a Horizon combo here in the TCG ourselves with decks like Rocket Link as well as something like Adamantipator, and Skill Drain can actually be pretty good against these types of decks. So something to think about, but again, with only 1 copy, is it worth the slot? That's really something you have to decide. Even in the extra deck, I mean, there's a wide variety of hand traps. We have Pankratops, we have the Nibiru, the Lancias, the 1 Skullmeister, the Droll Knockbird, the 3rd Gamma. I think it's weird to just play 2 copies of Gamma because you're already playing the driver. And then for the back row removal, we've got the Lightning Storms of Feather Duster as well as the Red Reboot. At the end of the day, it's Virtual World. I mean, that's one of the weird things about Virtual World is that because of the way the deck is designed, there really isn't a lot of room for innovation here, and so the decks are going to look almost identical. I mean, you might just want to argue some numbers of certain cards, but aside from that, just playing 3 of everything in most instances, maybe like 2 of like Nyan Nyan, just because it's not really a card you want to see all that often, but everything else is pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and scroll on down to Drytron. Now, this is a deck that's actually been on the rise in the OCG. As we know, in the TCG, Drytron has been a very formidable force, but Drytron gets a little bit of an upgrade in Lightning Overdrive, and I imagine this article is going to discuss it. So Zhuanghui, I probably completely butchered that name, went 7-1-2 and finished 3rd through 4th in the China City Tournament Wuhan in 2021, which had 192 participants. I wish we could have tournaments with that many people now. It's crazy, but unfortunately it is what it is. He ran 1 B Buster Drake in the side deck. Yes, you read that correctly. B Buster Drake can be equipped to Vanity's Ruler or Herald of Ultimateness via Union Carrier's effect to make them unaffected by opponent's spell cards, such as Dark Ruler No More and Forbidden Droplet. Vanity's Ruler effect prevents the opponent from special summoning monsters that would also rule out Kaiju as an answer to this opening setup. This is something I don't think we've seen in the TCG. If we have, it has been just super fringe, but this is huge, right? I mean, being able to have access to B Buster Drake, for anyone who doesn't know, this is an ABC card of all things. Once per turn, target a light machine monster you control, equip it to that target or unequip it and special summon it. A monster equipped with this card is unaffected by your opponent's spell effects. Also, if the equipped monster would be destroyed by battle or card effect, destroy this card instead. If it's sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add a Union monster from your deck to your hand. That last part's irrelevant, but because of Union Carrier, you can just easily equip this directly to the Vanity's Ruler, bypassing any sort of other like ability to just Union equip something because it's Union Carrier. It doesn't care. Then you have a Vanity's Ruler that's also immune to spell effects. You all know that Forbidden Droplet is one of the best ways to deal with a card like this. Dark Ruler No More being a close second. And just like that, that makes for a much wider opening for a deck like Drytron to be able to dominate. This is really scary. I'm not sure if this trend picks up, if this is something that is going to push Drytron over the top, because that's just like super degenerate. Obviously, you have to get to the point where you can get to a Vanity's Ruler plus a Union Carrier and then be able to equip the Buster Drake. But nonetheless, I still think that is just a beast of an opening, and that is super difficult to combat. Now, another card that also has helped this deck get pushed over the top is the brand new rank 1 Xyz monster, Drytron Moo Beta Fafnir. Now, this card is just nuts. So it requires 2 or more level 1 monsters, so it's generic on top of it, so you could also get to this through other means. If you attribute a monster for a ritual summon, you can detach the appropriate materials from this card instead. You can only use each of the following effects of Drytron Moo Beta Fafnir once per turn. If this card is Xyz summoned, you can send 1 Drytron card from your deck to the graveyard, already broken by the way, that basically just sets you up for more plays. And then, when your opponent activates a spell trap card while you control a machine ritual monster as a quick effect, you can detach 1 material from this card, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. So the fact that this card not only gives you more setup because it's like an extender in addition to everything else, but it also then acts as a piece of interaction to stop your opponent as well. There are combos with this card that turn like 1 or 2 cards into like 7. This card is insane, and if there's anything that's going to help take Drytron over the top in Lightning Overdrive, remember, this is not Blazing Vortex, Moo Beta Fafnir is definitely going to be the card to do it. Let's go ahead and head on back. There's also this other card up here, Diviner of the Herald. Now, this is another card that the OCG has that we still do not have yet here in the TCG, and there's really no date for when we're supposed to get it. So if you've never seen this card, it's just a level 2 Light Fairy Tuner effect monster, and it says if it's normal or special summon, you can send a fairy monster from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard, and if you do, increase this card's level by the level of that sent monster until the end of the turn. If this card is tributed, you can special summon a level 2 or lower fairy monster from your hand or deck, except another copy of itself, and you can only use each effect of Diviner of the Heralds once per turn. So just think about how that synergizes with this deck and the amount of plays that this helps enable. This card is crazy. This can help just with some absolutely huge setups in tandem with the brand new Fafnir. We don't know when we're getting this. This might be an OCG exclusive in Lightning Vortex to help push this deck over the edge when that set does come out. And so who knows, maybe this deck won't get hit on the upcoming ban list because they know they want to sell Lightning Overdrive. This might be something you might want to consider whether you're looking to pick up a deck to play or invest in, because maybe Konami doesn't want to hit this deck right away on the upcoming March 2021 ban list, and they're actually going to make this deck even better once Lightning Overdrive is released. Who knows? We don't know when we're getting this. We do know that Fafnir, however, is in Lightning Overdrive. So if there's a time to print this card as an OCG exclusive, it's probably that set. I also want you guys to pay attention to the fact that Drytron is also playing Pot of Prosperity. Pot of Prosperity sees a lot of play in the OCG, and Drytron isn't super reliant on its extra deck. Obviously, it's important for some of the link climbing plays, but being able to see your combo pieces is more important a lot of the time. So this is another card that can see a lot of play in a wide variety of different decks, and I will not be surprised if that trend continues here in the TCG. Scrolling on down to the side deck, there's the B Buster Drake. This is just hilarious. I cannot believe this this is coming up, but hey, Union Carrier's broken, who knew? Everything else here is pretty standard. Let's go ahead and get into the last part of the video, and that is covering Zodiac. So Ryuna finished second in the 54th Garosu CS with Osaka Yugi, which had 28 teams or 56 participants. With the increase of Drytron in the competitive scene, he chose a hand trap heavy build, running a total of 13 hand traps in the main deck. Against Vanity's ruler, equipped with B Buster Drake, answers such as Kaiju, Dark Ruler No More, and Forbidden Droplet are ineffectual. Disrupting the combo directly with hand traps is a more effective counterplay. So again, this is something to keep in mind, that if the end board is something that we can't deal with, stopping the play before it gets to that point is going to be the more ideal move. And so if we get to a point where people are all starting to play B Buster Drake in their main or side deck for a deck like Drytron, then we might have to up our hand trap count in our specific format. He also chose to run 3 copies of Divine Arsenal Zeus in the extra deck, as 2 copies could be depleted quickly, especially in the Zodiac mirror match. The 3rd copy could become the game-winning difference. Wow, 3 Zeus. You guys remember back in the days of like Zodiac mirror matches, and some people would actually play 3 copies of Zodiac Trident, just so in case those matches went long, you could just slam down the 3rd Trident, and a lot of the times that was a difference maker. It's crazy how something like that can just be the difference sometimes, but 3 copies of Zeus in pure Zodiac. Now, pure Zodiac isn't something we see a whole lot of. It's definitely a strong deck because the engine is so concise. You can play a lot of different hand traps depending on what the meta is doing. I think if you're going to play Zodiac, you might as well just play Zodiac Eldritch, because I think it's the more robust strategy, and it's definitely been more proven. But when you're playing a more pure version of Zodiac, you can play more specific cards like Cosmic Cyclone, like Book of Moon, a lot of different things. We're also seeing a Living Fossil in here. Remember when we played stuff like Shuffle Reborn back in Zodiac? Yeah, I think Living Fossil might be just a little bit better, but overall, I still think that's great. Again, keep in mind, I've said this before, that they do have the Utopic Future Dragon there in the OCG. This is another card that we don't know when we're getting here in the TCG, and I think this is holding Zodiac back a bit from being as powerful as it could be, but nonetheless, still a super strong deck. In the TCG, we're going to see tons of Zodiac, both in pure and Eldritch form, predominantly in the Eldritch form, let's be honest, but regardless, I mean, triple Zeus is just insane. Zeus is just a hell of a card. I mean, there's really no way to work around it. Let's go ahead and scroll down here to the side deck and see if there's anything special. It looks like a lot of the same cards that they were siding before. I love the double Mind Control. Mind Control is just insane to me. I don't know how this card is like still legal. And then we got a nice slew of traps as well. For the conclusion, after the release of Lightning Overdrive, Virtual World, Drytron, and Zodiac are the top 3 decks of the format, taking a giant lead ahead of the rest. Drytron gained Drytron Mu Beta Fafnir with the release of Lightning Overdrive, greatly improving its consistency and propelling it straight to the top. Now that's really interesting because remember, they have Max C in their format, so you'd think a special summoning heavy deck might be held back by that, but at the same time, they have Call by the Grave. They also have Crossout Designator, which is another card we still do not have here, and that definitely can make a difference. Lightning Overdrive also came with When AI First Met You and Dark Infant Adignister, making Adignister viable as a competitive deck. So let's go and take a look at these cards. So When AI First Met You is a normal spell that reads, reveal 1 Cybers monster with 2300 attack in your hand or extra deck, and if you do, add 1 Adignister monster with the same attribute from your deck to your hand. Also, for the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, you cannot activate monster effects except Cybers monsters. During the end phase of this turn, take 2300 damage if you did not special summon the revealed monster or a monster with the same name after you resolve this effect. You can only activate this once per turn. So this is one hell of a rota for this archetype, and I'm not really surprised to see that a card like this is boosting a deck like Adignister to competitive play. Adignister is one of those decks that's like always been on the fringe. We've actually seen people like Andreas Torres, one of Yu-Gi-Oh's best players, actually piloting Adignister at a significantly high competitive level. So getting a big consistency boost like this is massive. Let's go ahead and check out the other card. So the other card is Dark Infant Adignister. So it's a Dark Cybers Link effect monster, Link 1, 500 attack. It requires 1 non-Link Adignister monster. Oh boy, anytime you guys see a Link 1 monster, you should be afraid. So if this card is Link summoned, you can add 1 Ignister AI land from your deck to your hand. Here we go. It's the Solomon Great Balinks of Adignisters. And when a Cybers monster with 2300 original attack activates its effect, quick effect, you can move this card to your main monster zone this card points to. Then you can make this card become any attribute until the end of this turn. You can only use each effect of Dark Infant Adignister once per turn. So the fact that you just get to search the field spell is fantastic, but then also the fact that you get to move the card from the extra monster zone to the main monster zone then means that you have a zone open to the left, and then you can actually summon other Link monsters, both in the extra monster zone that you just opened up, but also to the left of Dark Infant Adagnister. I don't know Adagnister well enough to know whether or not the rest of that effect is relevant with the becoming any attribute part. I imagine it is. This card just seems really, really good from the little knowledge that I do have. But, man, when it comes to Link 1s, like, every time I see a Link 1 monster now, I always just have to hold my breath because some of these monsters are just ridiculously broken. And we may be quickly adding Dark Infant to the pantheon of broken Link 1s because it just seems good. It just seems really good on the surface, and I really need to look up my Adagnister cards now because I need to see what this deck is capable of doing with cards like this and when AI first met you. Also, the puns in this deck, I can't. Please save me from ever having to talk about this deck in videos because having to say these names seriously, I'm never going to be able to do that. But that's going to wrap it up for the meta ahead. And I think we got a lot of really good insight this time around. A lot of cool new strategies. I think we're going to see the impact of Pot of Prosperity and Blazing Vortex very shortly. And a lot of exciting stuff to look forward to. I can't wait to see what everyone comes up with. Be sure to let me know down in the comments what you think and if you caught anything that I may not have. Or if you're just an Adagnister expert and want to tell me how broken Dark Infant is, I'll also appreciate that as well. So guys, that's going to wrap it up for the video. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always. Subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. And if you found this video informative, consider supporting me on Patreon for exclusive early one-day access to both the Yu-Gi-Oh Progression series and the history of Yu-Gi-Oh. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and we will see you next time.